G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name is James, welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been around. I usually say welcome if you're new, welcome back, whatever, I've forgotten it. It's only been a week. And it's been years since I've been doing these videos. You know, every now and again you just lose your brain and it's completely fine. I've got my 5-year journal in front of me here. Can you believe I'm still working on this years later? But I do need to get it finished. I had every intention of having it finished by the end of January 2024. It is now February 2024, so I'm gonna keep working on it. I'm about to get into a really busy season from now until like literally Halloween, I guess. And I'm really happy about that, don't get me wrong, but this is one of those things that I need to prioritize getting finished because I'm currently working in my other, like my new 5-year journal, and it feels a little weird to double handle both. It's not terrible, but it just feels like a little bit more than I can handle right now. So I'm gonna really work diligently to get it finished. I am so close to the end. I'm like halfway through November. I've just got to do the rest of that December. A lot of the pages are already done, so I'm really right in the home stretch, but I've been doing these videos where I've been finishing them up for you on screen. Pardon me, where I've just been recording a lot of those play sessions that I've had. This one's a really fun one today because there was an earthquake in the middle of filming, so enjoy that. I might slow it down as you see it. I might just keep it in real time. I'm not sure where it'll be in the video. I put it on my Insta story. It's not that impressive. It was just a teeny tiny little earthquake, but it was funny because my hands just kind of stopped. And I was just, I do this thing where I focus my eye on something. And it was funny because I had my Collage Club ephemera in front of me. So I focused my eye on one specific little round circle of ephemera. And I thought as I was doing it, because the trick is, and I have a whole history of PTSD with earthquakes. So it's a thing, but I'm working really well at overcoming a lot of that. I'm in a much better place, actually. If you've heard me talk about it before, like it's been years and years, but I've come to a point where I'm pretty much just good now with them happening. The trick is that you focus your eyes on something, and if you don't move your eyes like at all, I know this looks really intense, but if you don't move them, your brain can't think up all of the other things that it thinks, because the PTSD, like my brain goes right into that catastrophe immediately, and then I think of all the different ways I'm about to die, and like I just can't stop it, and then it gets really intense, and obviously it's not a great experience. So and that doesn't matter how big that earthquake is, and it wasn't even just that. For like the briefest story, if you've never heard this before, I was in Japan, pardon me, in 2011 when we had the earthquake and tsunami. I wasn't near it. I was in Tokyo, which was thankfully very far away from that. Obviously, I still felt it and the after effects of all of that. And it was just something that I felt traumatized by. It's been hard for me to deal with it, the fact that like other people I worked with there didn't experience it the same way. And then some people did. And so PTSD has just been this really interesting journey for me. And then I was hit by a car in 2015. And so I feel like I was traumatized all over again for a completely different reason. And even though I've done really good work on trying to come to terms with car accidents and earthquakes, like the very specific things that I felt traumatized by. Unfortunately, the PTSD showed itself up in lots of really random ways, and I became a little bit agoraphobic, and there's just a lot of things that I was dealing with that currently, to this day, I still have to work on, and things that just kind of impact my daily life every now and again. And one of them is this really intense catastrophizing, like, I get really upset to be stuck under a bridge or on a bridge or near a traffic light that I feel like will fall on top of me. Like I have these really vivid, imaginative experiences where I'm dying all the time. So it's something that has gotten so much better. And this was started in 2011. So we're, how many years away is that? That's like 13 years ago. And I still have those things that I work on. So when I say it's not fully gone, it's manageable stuff like that kind of impacts my life a bit, so I have to be careful. But mostly, I'm fine to get in the car, I'm fine to go driving, I'm even fine when there's an earthquake now, because I have a little skill. I used to not be able to handle it when I would feel even the slightest shake, not even from an earthquake, but like if the cat was scratching on the couch and the couch would start wobbling like this, immediately my whole body would go into fight or flight, and I just could not get out of my head how unsafe I felt. And I felt like the only thing I'd feel safe about was standing in the middle of an open field. And I live in a downtown area, so that's not close. There is a park kind of down there, and I do go walking around that a lot of the time. Anyway, that's a longer conversation for never, but the whole crux of what I was getting at was that I have this technique, and I was focusing right on that little piece of ephemera, so none of those thoughts were entering my brain. Your brain cannot, when you're laser focused on it and you do not move your eyeballs. I think that was the trick. Like, you're not allowed to move your eyeballs at all. As soon as you do, apparently it like unlocks that part of your brain, whatever. I don't know. I took it at face value. It's worked for me every single time since. And now, what was even funnier is this time I was focusing on the ephemera. I thought, oh, this is great, because I'm just going to use that ephemera in my 5-year journal to write about this, because every other time I've drawn what I was focusing on, or I took a photo of it, and I'd have to go the extra mile to make sure I got that documented, because that's the specific thing that I want to put in my journal. So this time I thought, great, it's ready-made ephemera. This could not be more convenient for me. So that just worked out really well. I'm really happy about that. I never thought I'd say that about an earthquake, but I've got my old 5-year journal here, the original, the OG, the Chunky Monkey A6, very, very full, almost cannot close at this point. It's just going to get worse. Hobonichi 5-year journal, and I'm on March 29th. This is a part of my the last 5 years series. Why did I do that? That's literally what it's called. I mean, yeah. I started this in Playtest Patreon 3, and there are a bunch of those episodes that I think are in that content bundle, which is available on Teachable, linked below if you want to find that. And then there's a bunch of them on YouTube as well. The original ones, I think I just talked. I don't think... Ooh, I just dropped the journal. I hope it's okay. I don't think I've ever dropped this journal before. It dropped right open on its spine too. It's fine. Whew. Anyway, the original ones I don't think had talking in them, but I don't think had working in them. But then as I was trying to finish all this up, I thought this would be a great way to actually give you something visual to watch if you're watching. Me, when I watch YouTube videos, I use the term watch very loosely. I listen to YouTube videos. YouTube videos might as well just be podcasts for me. I couldn't tell you the last time I actually watched a YouTube video. Every now and again I'll look, but I'm usually working. I watch hours and hours and hours worth of content every day on YouTube, but I'm working as I do it. So there's no real opportunity for me to watch when my eyes are focused on my journals. So anyway, if you're watching, hopefully you enjoy some of the footage. And if you're listening, hello, enjoy this, the 29th of March. From 2019 until 2023. I used to say present day or like current year, but this is last year. Now I feel like this is really old news. Okay. 2019. Danielle got a Disneyland annual pass today, so we spent the afternoon in the parks. We ate, watched Frozen, had a beer, and caught Soundsational. That is crazy. To top it all off, we rode Splash Mountain at 8 p.m. and got absolutely drenched. Haha, it was Danielle's idea. I take no responsibility. Ha ha ha. That is so funny. I remember that so vividly too, because we were going to get an Uber home, I think. Or we did get an Uber home and we got in it wet. Something like that. Or Steve had to pick us up because we could. I love how I was like, I remember that so vividly. Here's the story I don't remember. Here's the details I have no idea about. Either way, Steve was very mad that we did that, because I'm notorious for doing something stupid like that and then getting sick. And who knows if I got sick, because I'm not reading on, but I hope I didn't. Probably. Danielle was our old roommate. If you were here when I first started my channel back in 2017, we might have still been living together, like right at the beginning there. But she was Steve's roommate for the longest time. And then when I moved here, we lived together, all three of us, for a while. And then Danielle moved out, and then Steve and I started just living as a married couple by ourselves. So Danielle has always been like kind of like an angel figure over at jlbCREATIVE. She's like one of the OG kind of characters in the jlbCREATIVE atmosphere. Her, Bianca, Stella, Oliver, Steve, obviously. We have a few people that have just been around since back then that I always just feel like everyone's familiar with. And maybe some people remember, maybe some people don't, but Danielle was our roommate. In 2019, going to Disneyland, I had an annual pass, so I wanted Danielle to get one so that I'd have someone to go with. I didn't work back at Disneyland back then, so I would go in to visit Steve or to go and see him, perform, or, I mean, technically work, but it was performing. So I'd go and watch him, and I guess Frozen was still on. That doesn't exist anymore. Soundsational was still on, which doesn't exist anymore. I work with a lot of the performers now in the parade department that were a part of that, so it's so interesting for me now to think that that day all those years ago, I was seeing people that I would one day end up working with and befriending. That is an interesting thought to me. I do really like that Sensational Parade. It's very fun. Obviously, I never did it, but I loved watching it. And I loved going into the parks mainly to watch shows and entertainment. That was always my go-to. I'm not against rides, I'm against lines. So that would usually put me against rides. But I do go into Disneyland to kind of just be entertained or people watch, or I take my journal in there and just kind of enjoy sketching on location and having a nice little playtime. But shows, entertainment was my big draw card. And back then, 2019, like even a few years before that, there was tons and tons of entertainment that you could fill your entire day with. I think it's a little bit harder to fill your entire day with shows now. That hasn't been my experience when I visited more recently. There are more things happening this year. I think post-pandemic, every year has kind of been adding a bit more and a bit more. So that's really exciting because I still kind of prefer just to go and see all the shows and the entertainment. I love being entertained. What can I say? So that was 2019. And here we have 2020. Steve helped me shoot some promo materials for social media announcements about Memory to Memento. I'm so close to launching it and I'm freaking out. It's been almost a whole year since our trip to Japan. Terrible time to release travel-themed course right now. Though, seeing as leaving your house is almost fully illegal. Oh well, my job is to do my best. God will provide the rest. Also downloaded all my old Dub Smashes. Haha. Remember Dub Smash? It was like a lip syncing app. I guess I had a few that I wanted to download for some reason. I don't know. Yes, Memory to Memento. Still have that course on Teachable. I still love it. That's one of my favorite journals. It's literally up on my shelf on display up there from Japan. Stella and I, speaking of characters, went to Japan in 2019. And then it took me about a whole year to piece all of that together, and it was a very interesting experience, and I felt like it was one of the most kind of enjoyable art journaling experiences I had at that point, because it was based in so many wonderful memories. I love Japan. I love my memories of Japan, but because I was doing it after the fact, I had all of the stuff that was from that experience, but then I also added to it like parts of memories that I'd had from before anyway. Like it was just kind of all in there. It was a big celebration of like all my Japanese travel memories. And even though those journals really only focused on that, it always felt nice to go back to it and kind of relive those experiences. That's what my favorite part of travel journaling really is not only reliving the experience while you do it, which I say is like a little bittersweet. Sometimes you do get a little bit sad that you're not still having that experience. So it's a bit bittersweet, but then once the travel journal's done, then you go back and look at them. It's just pure joy, pure nostalgia. And they're some of my favorites to look back on, especially because so much happens so quickly that you tend to not be able to capture all of it. Like it really feels like sometimes when I'm doing daily journaling, even though you find some creative ways to talk about the monotonous experiences that you might have, travel journaling is usually like lots of family, lots of friends, lots of experiences, lots of new things that you're doing, or it just always seems packed with excitement and interesting things to look at. I feel like it's kind of hard to make a lackluster travel journal, even if you're doing the bare minimum. So I loved that. We put it together, and who's we? Me and all my personalities. I put it together, and then Steve did help me take some of the promo photos, so I'll give him credit there. And then I launched it right in COVID. What a tragic thing to do. I had to release it because there was no point saving it. It wasn't date specific. And I knew that it was always going to be a course that would sit in my Teachable for a long time. So it didn't really matter if no one was interested in 2020. You could do it in 2024 and it would still be the exact same course with the same information. However, it was really interesting because a bunch of people did join in 2020, and it kind of had that weird, unexpected result, where people, even though they couldn't physically go out, a lot of people did have travel journals that they were working on that just wanted a bit of inspiration, so joined the course to get that and to inspire them to work on travel journals they had unfinished. Or some people used it as kind of like a virtual escape. And that was, I don't really have a bearing on how I felt about that before the pandemic, because I wasn't really in the online live art journaling community atmosphere. I had done a few things with Art Journaling the Magic, but once it was pandemic times and we really had nowhere to go, and everything, really, we all learned how to use Zoom. I felt like that was the first time I felt like those experiences in and of themselves weren't kind of not real. I don't know how to explain that. Sometimes I felt like on you know how you feel like, well, if I'm going to go to a party, I'm going to be with all these people in real life and it's going to be this physical, real experience. I used to think that when it was online, it was just kind of fake. Like you couldn't really be with someone. It wasn't totally real. I don't know, it just felt like this kind of weird fake thing. But the more I was in those online spaces and the more we were doing live streams and being together and doing workshops and stuff, I felt like, no, these are real interactions. Like I'm actually here, I'm doing all this stuff in real life. They're sitting over there, we're chatting, we're asking questions. Like that was a real life experience that I guess I'd FaceTimed my family before and I thought those were real. I don't know why I thought, in that context, it just wasn't a real thing. Excuse me a second. My allergies aren't bad today. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, weird way to say what I'm saying, but I think some people also use that as like this virtual travel experience too. And people were kind of using it for whatever reason, like maybe planning a trip, but still making a travel journal inspired by that. I don't know. People were just doing tons of stuff that I never expected that they would do with that course. I never try to picture what someone's going to do with any of the courses. I always just feel like I said in here, like my job is to do my best and just kind of put it out there and whatever happens, happens. And I'm glad because I still feel like that. In the beginning, I didn't really know whether, I'd make one workshop and then just be done with it. And now all these years later, we have a bunch. And some of them I feel like are very, of that season, like those playtest Patreon experiences, a lot of those things in there kind of exist in that moment in time. But then the whimsical illustration workshop, as many years ago as I did that, I still feel like I stand by what it is, like even today. And Memory to Memento, the Daisy Style workshop, that's kind of recent, but I still think like they seem evergreen to me. There's nothing that really dates them in time, except for the vlog. In Memory to Memento, I did vlog the entire experience, and so that obviously exists in 2019. But I love that too, because then Stella and I watched it back. And then Stella and I did that episode, I think for Playtest Patreon 2, where we voice-overed it and did a director's cut. Just like Steve and I did for my Australia trip. I love a director's cut. Oh, goodness. All right, 2021. We got our first round of COVID-19 vaccines. Wow, this is a good day to pick. Steve got the hookup through a friend from Trader Joe's who needed volunteers for their friends and family program, so none of the extra vaccines went to waste. The shot didn't hurt. In fact, it went so quickly I thought I didn't actually get it. I started to feel a little lethargic later in the evening, and my left arm's a little sore. We got Moderna, and round 2 is on April 26th. What an interesting piece of history that was. I just was so relieved at that point. Probably a little naive as well. I thought that once I had that vaccine, everything would go back to normal. It was not the case. I think we were all there. I think we know what happened and how that all went. But, a really important moment in time nonetheless. I get a little sad when I think about the amount of people I saw drop off from not just journaling in a 5-year Hobonichi or like journaling in some kind of daily Hobonichi or whatever, but just journaling in general through the pandemic. I totally understand that a lot of people did not want to be reliving those experiences and certainly didn't want to, sit and write about it all day long. I felt like it was very cathartic to kind of document it all. I feel like, in some weird way, I don't know where this journal is going to end up or where these videos are going to end up, but I just feel like having a little piece of tangible, written, documented history just always feels a little bit more important to me. When I think about the thousands of years, apparently, that we've been on this planet, I mean, nothing beyond 3 days ago exists to me, so I really don't know. But, when they say like, oh, this piece of parchment is from 1820 and it reveals this thing that we didn't know. I don't know what the longevity is of the internet and documenting things online. I mean, I always feel like if YouTube's database just goes somewhere, like if the cloud just turns off, then aren't all these videos just gone? And will they ever be somewhere else? I mean, who knows? But somewhere exists a very physical, tangible account. And not that my words mean anything, but, if for some reason all of this computer stuff just left and historians had nothing to go on about, the 2020 pandemic, I would hope that someone would find, people's journals and their written accounts of it, which is also kind of interesting too, because if you had to shape history through my journals, you'd probably think that fairies and mermaids were kind of real. So how much of our history is actually real, or is not just some weirdo with a journal who was saying stuff? Oh, what if it was just me, like people like me 300 years ago who was just making stuff up because they had a wild imagination? Food for thought. Okay, so anyway, very interesting piece of history there. I really do appreciate, I think that one of the biggest kind of, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say life-changing moments. I guess it was. I mean, for everybody, it was kind of world-changing. One of the most kind of intense events to have happened through this entire 5-year journal was obviously the pandemic. And it is not something I feel too bad about revisiting this far away from it. It feels like it's kind of, it's in the past now. So I feel kind of okay looking through it all. What a wild time that was. Let's not do that again. All right, 2022. YouTube filming and Virtual Voyage 6 prep. Still thinking about new song and what I can even do about that. Like nothing, literally nothing. What do I even think of church anymore? Oh, this is heavy. Mix that with Steve. Oh, goodness. I don't even know if I can say that. Okay. Okay, Steve was let go from, and I'm putting that very nicely, and I really don't want to go into that story, but Steve was let go from a job, just a part-time job that he had. So let's just say that. And we're not feeling very joyous in the Limones Burke household right now. I can't believe how manipulative that person was to Steve. It was so wrong, and I'm going to say it, she is actually a psycho for how she handles business. So wrong, poor Steve. Yeah, and I hope you do see this. If you are watching it, yes, I'm still mad at you, and I will have my day where I get to have a good old chat with you about what you did. Terrible. This is the weirdest thing about this 5-year journal, because there's real life stuff that happened in here, and maybe I should have checked all of this before I said it to you. Maybe Steve will tell you the story one day. I'm sure he'd tell you if we're in person. Steve was wrongfully terminated, and we're not litigious people, so obviously we were never really considering going down any kind of wrongful termination route, but it was more just a very personal, it was a little bit of history repeating itself, which was frustrating, but it was also a very personal and very manipulative and very it was really ugly. Like, it was just really ugly the way that it happened. And I felt for Steve in the same way that he felt for me, like many, many years ago when I had my own issue in my art journaling space, where a lot of people were fed some type of information that made it look completely false. And it was so manipulative. And so I felt terrible because, I mean, Steve didn't really see it coming. I don't know if I felt like the writing was on the wall there. I did always have an issue with certain business practices, because I like to separate my personal feelings from business a lot, and, just look very black and white at the business aspect of it. Obviously, I would like everyone to be respectful in their business dealings, but it's just not a given. Some people just don't have integrity. Let's leave it at that. I wish I could tell you the whole story, because it was kind of wild. And I think the thing that really stuck out with me the most was just how personal it all felt. And Steve really did have a hard time with that. And it wasn't just, a part-time work that you're losing. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to have to go find some other job or whatever. There's a lot of friendships that were wrapped up in that. And I think that was the most difficult part, because, to just pretend like we're talking about something else. Imagine you've got a bunch of friends that, come to know, like, you get fired, everybody else knows that it happened. They know exactly what happened per both sides of the story, but they all still need their jobs. So they're going to stay there, and they're going to keep going as if that didn't happen. And I can't blame them. I would think in that position, if I were looking at my friends, I would obviously want them to do what was right for them. Like, I don't need them to choose a side one way or the other. I've never really been that type of person to be like, choose your loyalties. But at the same time, I think I'd be very disconnected at that point. I just don't know how, logically in my brain, how I could kind of move forward knowing that that's where the relationships are. They're kind of all centered around this thing that is now very tainted. So that's kind of Steve's story to tell. I won't tell you much more than that, but it was very frustrating. And if I ever, and I will, get a chance to give this lady a piece of my mind, she will have it for free. My mom's gonna be so mad if she hears this video. She always tells me not to be confrontational. If you don't know that about me, I'm a very confrontational person. I was telling I don't know who I was telling, but I was telling someone, I was like, no, I've gotten so much better. But the reality was I was just working by myself for so many years. So like there was no one to confront except me, which I'm also very confrontational with myself too. Trust and believe. I would never say something to someone that I would not be willing to have said to me. But in general, I don't have an issue calling something out. In this business world and this social media scape, I've been much more hesitant to do so because I think it's messier. I would always love to do it face to face and in real life and then, handle it that way. I just think it gets way too messy online. So I really don't try to bring that to the internet. Sometimes it's unavoidable though. Sometimes you really just have to, speak your piece, but I haven't had to do that in so many years. So I'm really happy about that. 2023, what a good passage this has been. I hope you've been enjoying all the drama of it that I'm not willing to tell you in detail. All playtest Patreon 3 content is done now, completely finished and all bundled on Teachable for me to close Patreon tomorrow. I am relieved. I need to go on a holiday yesterday, but I just need to push a little harder to get through a few more brackets 3 YouTube videos and Art Snacks box freestyle video for April. I made it to Zumba this morning. My back is almost feeling 100% again. Steve's struggling to know what to do with my depressed feelings over it. Oh, I wrote over it at the end. I am going to guess I knew exactly what this was about. I was really packing my schedule full of a lot of work to do because I was very depressed that I wasn't dancing. And if you've been watching any of my videos lately, you know that's absolutely the 100% opposite problem that I have now. I'm dancing too much now. I'm not. Take that back. It was a joke. Exaggerating, obviously. But yeah, I really feel for Steve. It's one of those things that, in marriage, you do kind of sign up for it. So I can't feel too sorry for him. And I've had to deal with a lot of his stuff too. It's only fair. But Steve is like he's a very emotional person. And I'm very logical, and I've always kind of been that way. And a lot of the time I just compartmentalize my feelings away altogether, and I really only feel them if I decide to. But in this case, like I really couldn't control it. And so a lot of the time when he was dealing with my feelings about dance, he was dealing with a version of me that he just really never met before, and he didn't really know what to do with. And it really distressed him. If he would see me upset, would get him very, very overwhelmed and very upset. So he'd try and fix it immediately. But unfortunately, like he couldn't fix it. And so then it was literally just trying to teach him to sit in it. Like, there's that part in Call Me By Your Name where, what's his name? The dad says, something along the lines of like, to stop yourself from feeling anything at all. So like to feel nothing, like what a waste. And I've always believed that, like I am no problem just to feel my feelings through and feel them out. But sometimes it means you're just kind of sad for an hour or, 2 in the nighttime, or you just go to bed earlier, or, I don't believe I was ever clinically depressed, but I definitely felt these like waves of depression about it. And, if I could access joy, I would still let myself do that. I would still laugh if I could. I would try my best to, to function as best as I could. And thankfully, it never really got in the way of work that I had to achieve. In fact, a lot of the time, I think I distracted myself with work. But, I really only saw one way out of it, and it was to dance again and to do that. And it wasn't even just like going to dance class. It was really about performing. Like I don't know what it is about me and the way that I'm made up. I just need to be out there dancing and performing. I can't help it. So unfortunately, that was where I was at that moment. And yeah, it was just really hard for Steve. So he tries to fix it like immediately, and then he gets very distressed when he can't fix it. So obviously you could kind of imagine what those issues were. Just regular married life stuff. We've been married for 7 years. Yes, but I've known Steve since since 2009. 9? Yes, 2009. And I mean, it's so crazy to think that like I've grown to where I am now. I feel like I've always been the same person, but my struggles have changed. My feelings about things have changed. Obviously, in this passage, you see like, how do I even feel about church? That whole thing was wild. I think I went into detail about that in Playtest Patreon 3, but essentially, I mean, we both left the church because of that. And it was a place that we had built so much community for so many years. And Steve was very heavily invested, to the point of like, working there, like interning there. And so, we've just gone through life together, and you take those vows when you get married to like be there and be all through it, but they just don't really register. Like I remember saying those vows thinking like the worst thing that would happen was that he might be like a little mad at me one day for, leaving a dish in the sink. Like that would be the extent of why someone could be upset with me. Which is pales in comparison to the things that we've made each other upset about. And, reading through years of that history and then, taking stock of this current moment and just being aware of like, well, we're still here, we're still married, like all of those storms were weathered. We literally came out on the other side of every single one of them. All the things that we've learnt through these experiences, all the things that like scarily we still have yet to learn from different experiences. I don't know, it just makes me feel very appreciative to to be here right now and to be on the other side of a lot of those issues. I'm so happy we're on the other side of that pandemic. I'm so happy that I'm on the other side of that issue at church. I'm so high. I mean, that actually never really got that resolved, but like I have left it. Like it's gone. That is done for me. My feelings about it are disconnected from how I live now. And I remember being in that moment where it was all I could think about every day, and the unresolved feelings about it would just eat away at your time, at your peace, and you're just like, well, that needs to be fixed, that needs to be resolved. I'm not a huge justice warrior like Steve is. Like Steve needs it fixed immediately, and he can see it coming. Like he needs the justice. But for me, like I've been okay to just make closure happen, in spite of not being given any. And I don't like reading back through some of these more difficult times, but it just feels so nice to read them in a better place. I feel curious actually to know what other people feel like when they read back their journals that are chronicled like over time. This specific format I think is just so interesting because it literally compares the same day year after year, and that year over year kind of approach is just a really interesting way to get a good look at your life. But for people that journal daily and just read back a journal from a couple of years ago and kind of compare it to right now, like how does that feel? Like are you happy? I guess it's just where you're at. I hope you're happy. Don't answer if you're not happy. That's a really unfair question of me to ask, considering I'm happy right now. If I read that to you last year, you'd know I wouldn't be happy. But all that to say, I think it's okay. I think it's absolutely okay if you take, your time to feel your feelings, and those feelings aren't happiness. Sadness is a feeling. You're allowed to feel that too. Frustration, anger, you can feel all of those things. There are healthy ways to feel those things as well. And I'm always glad that I have it all documented for what it's worth. I'm interested in it just because my own personal development, I think, has been really affected by knowing myself on such an intimate level, and also checking in with myself during very difficult times. And in the times where I'm not doing some of that really heavy lifting on, growing myself as a good person, and the times where I can just document triumphs and, joys, it is just a real blessing and a real treat to be able to celebrate and take a moment to take stock of and appreciate and have a Thanksgiving every single time I can write something down, like I'm dancing again, or this worked out, I got it, I felt good in an audition, or I've lost 20 pounds, or I good things that I feel like don't really get celebrated if you don't stop to actually celebrate them. We take a lot of time thinking, I think anyway, sometimes I think too much of my energy and time can be spent on thinking about problems and things that need to be fixed. And when I think about a joy or something that should be celebrated, it's so fleeting. And I wish I could spend just the same amount of time being happy and celebrating those things as I do trying to fix a problem, you know, like shift that the energy towards positive as much as I could. Not toxic positivity though, we hate that. I hate it if it's fake. I actually do have some friends who are very, very, I would say sweet is maybe the right adjective in my brain, but it kind of comes across as maybe like a little toxically positive, but that is actually who they are. Like that's a very real thing to them. So I don't hate it because that's authentic to them. But people who fake that really frustrate me. We should stop talking. For some reason, I'm gonna start talking about things that I hate. It's like that episode of Kath and Kim where she goes speed dating and she's like, what do you hate? It's a great way to connect with people. I've had a good time chatting with you. The sun is about to set. I'll probably gotta go and pick up my husband from work in a minute. Hope you had a great time watching this video. I will endeavor to get this journal finished and flipped for you and chat about all of it again and again and again and again and again, forever, until eternity. Amen. And yeah, be safe, have fun. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.